Hello and welcome. I'm Matt Hogan, and with me today is Mike Wieboldt from Fegley's Brewworks. Mike, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Matt? Thanks for having me.
You're most certainly welcome, Mike. Now, as head brewer of Fegley's, you can give us some more information about beer in the brewing process, is that right?
That is correct.
Excellent. Let me start off with a question about you. How long have you been brewing beer?
I started home brewing about 10 years ago, and I've been brewing professionally for the Fegleys for 6 years.
Home brewing is a hobby that is becoming more and more popular among millennials. Is there any information you have for them about the process?
Basically, if you're going to start home brewing, you really have to know what type of beer you're going to make.
Now, how many types of beer are there?
There are two main categories of beer. You have ales and lagers. But underneath there, you have subcategories. So in the ale category, you would have stuff like IPAs, pale ales, wits. In the lager category, you would have Helles, Pilsner, and Box.
And all of these different types of beer can be grouped into two basic categories.
That is correct.
And the brewing process is the same for all of them?
Not exactly. So basically, depending on what you're going to make, you just need to make sure you have the right ingredients. Let's say an IPA. You're brewing an IPA, you're going to use a different yeast strain than you would a lager. So when we brew, what we do is we'll mash in our grains. It goes through a mill where it cracks the husk off of the grain, and then it goes into our mash tun where it gets mixed with hot water. Once it gets mixed with hot water, the enzymes in that malt will then convert the starches into sugar to create a nice sugary liquid called wort. Wort is what we're trying to capture out of that malt. From there, we will then start the lautering process where we will run off all that wort into our kettle. We'll fill it up to our desired volume, and then we'll start to boil it. Once we start to boil, for beers such as an IPA, we will do typically 3 hop additions, one right at the beginning of boil to get bitterness, another one about 15 minutes left into boil for flavor, and then a third at the end of boil for aroma. From there, we'll then send it into our fermenter where there's already yeast waiting for it. We'll go through heat exchangers to get it the wort down to fermentation temperatures. Also on the way over, we'll inject it with oxygen because yeast needs oxygen and sugar to create alcohol. And another byproduct is CO2.
And is that the last step in the brewing process?
Not exactly. So after fermentation, what we do is a process called cold crashing. We'll take the tank and we will cool it down to about 30 degrees, just right above freezing. From there, all the particulates will settle in the tank. We'll pull them off, and then we'll either filter it or we'll do a raw transfer for products such as wit. That's an unfiltered beer, and we'll move them into what is called a bright beer tank. In the bright beer tank, we will then carbonate it, and then especially over in Bethlehem, we'll serve it directly to the bar right from the tank. However, in Allentown, we're more production-based, so we do a lot of keg racking, and we'll also put it into bottles.
It sounds like there's a lot of emphasis on maintaining the freshness of the beer.
That's correct.
Would you say there's a ticking clock on the beer's expiration?
I'd say it's more like a ticking time bomb.
Oh.
Once you remove the yeast out of the equation, your shelf life just diminishes. Contrary to popular belief, beer is perishable. So typically for an IPA, you want to enjoy that IPA within 30 days of packaging. I don't know if you've ever had a cardboardy smelling and tasting beer, but that's a sign of oxidation, and sometimes they just get a little funky, and it's just not good anymore. It's not a good representation of the product.
So as opposed to aging, the factors that make each different individual type of beer is the ingredients that are involved, like the hops, the malt, and the yeast.
Correct. Specifically for ales, the yeast will ferment at warmer temperatures, so the fermentation process is a lot quicker. So typically I can get a product like an IPA out in about 14 days, sometimes a little bit longer. However, lagers, on the other hand, ferment at much colder temperatures. So it's typically a minimum of 28 days before that product is ready to transfer and carbonate and drink.
So what is a type of beer that is commonly brewed at Brewworks?
Our triple IPA, Hopsalutely, is our #1 seller. I actually did a show down in Philadelphia, and they love Hopsalutely down in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, I didn't have Hopsalutely as one of the 3 beers that I brought, and I was on the wrong side of an angry mob.
Oh, so people really love this beer.
Oh, yeah.
It must go great with every kind of food.
Not necessarily everything. Hopsalutely would go great with like a bar dinner food, such as like a burger or some wings or some pretzels with cheese dip. I would not recommend it for something like a chocolate cake for dessert.
So just because a beer tastes good on its own doesn't necessarily mean it will taste good with a certain type of food.
That's correct.
So let's pair this Hopsalutely with a meal and see how it works.
Works for me.
Here we have a Brewworks burger with Brew City fries and our Hopsalutely IPA. Would you say this is a good match?
I'd say it's a fantastic pairing. The Hopsalutely will actually accentuate the flavors in that meat, and also the toppings on top. And let's be honest, everything goes good with bacon. And I think it is actually a great pairing.
You know, I'm getting hungry just talking about it.
Me too.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing this great information about beer and the brewing process.
No problem. Thanks, Matt.
We'll see you soon.
Yes.
So, there you have it. The brewing process all the way from the different styles of beer to the table. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to stop into Fegley's Brewworks to try a Hopsalutely IPA.